Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast, the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and on the other end, Pascal has a Red Bull in his hands.
Yeah, just
a little mini one.
Monster was sold out. The other alternatives were sold out as well. And the Monster, the only Monster that they had was like the big ones, the extra big ones. And I'm just like, 600 milliliters now? It's actually a little bit too much for my taste. Which is like 568 or whatever it is, you know. But yeah, I thought that's a little bit too much, and that's why I decided for a small, petit Red Bull.
Did you just see what happened there?
No, what happened?
Basically, because there's building work outside. I don't know if you can hear it. If you can't, then... Oh, you can't? Amazing. So I don't have to close the window. Ada had her head shoved out the window a little bit, and I just started slowly closing it, and she freaked the fuck out. And she just flopped out and fell on the floor, and I was hoping she didn't hurt herself. She seems like she's okay, though.
No,
she's like, this is going to guillotine my neck and chop it off.
Everything's good here.
Oh, dear. So anyone who's listening now, if you can go check out the YouTube video and get that moment where I was like, shit, have I done something to her? But I have also... Oh, my coaster's stuck to it. Mm-hmm. A beverage, but mine looks
drinking
fancier.
Whiskey here. Drinking whiskey.
It's much less fancy because it's the Lidl own Red Bull.
Oh, so it's not whiskey. You're not an alcoholic.
I can't.
How crazy was it back then, Steve? Like back in the early days, I still remember that you were allowed to smoke in a cinema, for example, and stuff. I was sitting there as a kid in a cinema where people were able to smoke in there, like
madness.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also just like the old days. This is not where what I've experienced, but kind of when you watch shows, television shows or movies where they were just like, I don't know, you want to have a drink at 11 in the morning, and it was just like the norm.
I don't know. It's been illegal for a while to like drink on the street, right? That was never like okay.
I don't think it's here in Germany though. I think it's in London.
Oh, okay, is it like a specific London thing? Yeah. I wasn't sure.
I think you're not allowed. So in Berlin, at least, as far as I'm aware, but I'm not drinking any kind of alcohol anymore since a longer period of time.
We're the worst people to ask.
It's just like, I don't know. But I think you're not allowed to drink on the metro anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that might be the same for the underground. I have drank on the underground, to be honest. So I have broken the law probably there. But that was back like 7 years ago or something that I did that. And that was when I was not even working as an online coach. So longer than that, actually, like 10 years ago or something. So
Changed your life. Changed your life.
Now it's just energy drinks. That's how I get my kick.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if it's just me, but because normally at this time I'd be training because this is a rest day and drinking this. So it's been a while since I've eaten. Like I can feel it a little bit more. Like I feel a little bit more like, I don't know if it's, and it's also because I just went out shopping and I don't know, I feel a bit on edge. Like
what does that even mean? Like,
I don't even know. Like maybe
are you angry? Are you aggressive? Do you want to actually? I don't know.
I think it's like a slight sense.
What's being on the edge for Steve?
I think it's like a slight sense of low blood sugar. That's my edge. That's how I feel on edge. That's how I like get my kicks. Wait till I have a slight low blood sugar, and I might like just feel a bit quivery.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so sounds exciting actually. Living an interesting life.
Just on the edge of running low blood sugar. In contest prep, that's no joke though. That's like not fun.
Yeah. Actually, hypoglycemic sensations are not fun at all. Like the cold sweats that you then have, and you're just like, holy shit, what is going on right now?
I haven't had it to that extreme for a long time, but I have had it on walks. Like, if you're out on a long walk, you're just like crap. Yeah. Like I do not feel good. You have to sit down for a moment, and you're like, can I go like buy an apple somewhere to give me just like something?
So I still kind of remember when it happened for me, and that was also on a walk, but only on leg days and only whenever I entered a cutting phase. Weirdly enough, I don't know why. Just. Maybe, I don't know, the body's getting adjusted to something. I have no idea. Maybe it's just pulling things out of my arse. Yeah.
Post legs, yeah.
Exactly. Coming home, having something for breakfast, and then going out on a walk, and then...
not on the day of legs, like in the morning post
legs. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Man, yeah. Someone actually was just asking. I don't know why I had a couple of clients ask me, "Am I competing next year?" That just came in today. I think it's actually both of them are looking to compete next year.
Are you going to compete next year?
I was like, it's nothing I have planned.
Yeah.
Sky just shared the WMBF show dates because they obviously released them, Steph and Andy, on our podcast, and I shared it on my Instagram. And someone messaged me like, "Oh, are you taking the stage again?" And I'm like, it's actually an interesting discussion I had with my client. I was like, the later you are in your bodybuilding career, the nearer your genetic ceiling you are, probably the more the more competitive your physique is, the more you can compete. But also, to make improvements, you need even more time off. So it's like, if I want to make improvements, I really need to take some more time off. So it's like, I was just like, when I get that itch again is when I'll probably compete next. I don't have like a set deadline that I have to do it by, but I don't think next year. This feels a bit too soon for me.
It's good to hear though, because I want us to compete another time again, and this time like a full-on competition together. And I don't plan on stepping on stage next year. It's more like then in 2 years from now, so 2024 is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, I was thinking 2024, that sounds more appealing to me, like an actual, like a bit more of an off season where maybe I could have actually made some strides because of just like generally improving. And I guess as you get advanced though as well, like every little bit of added muscle just looks that more impressive because you're now no longer like average, and now like every little bit more is like, oh, you're that much more above like the average that we see necessarily. But yeah, I'd love to compete together. And actually that's what one of my clients was like. He was like, "Oh, it'd be really cool if we were like in prep together." And I'm like, you probably get more from me when I'm not in prep. Like, that's just being honest, like I'm a little bit less there when you're competing is a little bit more challenging. But when you're now
looking back, Steve, do you really think that it has impacted your last season and coaching abilities in the last season too much? Because to me, you didn't really seem super low and, I don't know, distracted and just low in calories overall.
Honestly, I don't think it did. I can see the argument to why you think it would, but I don't think it did. Like, honestly, and it's the same for you. It probably didn't impact yours either. You just more careful with how you spend your energy. So check-ins very important, and maybe you're just a bit less present on social media or like the things that just matter far less. And clients. And also,
at least to me, it was kind of part of my daily routine. It was actually giving me something to hold on to instead of something that I didn't really like, because it kept me kind of going, kept me distracted, and it always opened up the day. And I think it's much, much harder when you have like days where you're just like, I don't know what to do here today, right? And then you're realizing how low on energy you are and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I think we're both the same in that most of the time mornings are like priority stuff, and then it's just like this in a contest prep where the later in your day you get sleepy a little bit earlier and you aren't as energetic later in the day. So it's like priority stuff all comes kind of first thing, and then kind of it falls away a little bit from there. But we're very lucky, and I think we've spoken about this before too, that our jobs are like what they are, because
people will understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients who are like nurses, doctors, and they have to be on their feet, like caring for people. Even being an actual one-on-one PT and being in prep is way harder than being sat on your butt and like recording a 10-minute video.
I can especially imagine when you have to work with people and put a lot of empathy into your job.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows when you're going through prep, you get very, very indifferent about things that are happening around you. And even to the point where you just act like as if you don't really care at all. And often you actually don't really care at all in that giving time frame.
Yeah, it's really bad, that like apathy you have just for anything in life. You're just like, it's not really a big deal. And it makes sense. Like your body is like on the edge of like surviving. It's like, dude, you can't care for other things because you need to fucking eat. You need to care for yourself first, foremost.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a weird experience, but far away for us. How's everything for you going? How's the mass going? Where's the body weight?
Yeah, so over the past 2 weeks, I was sick due to severe sickness at home. I think I can do. So I don't know why, because I never really said why I was sick. I never had COVID before, right?
Right.
So it was that, I don't know, that there was still kind of I held myself back and just publicly talking about it.
Okay, yeah.
Especially like Katie and Tony had it as well, or it was more like Katie, I think, was the first one who had it. And over the past 2 weeks, I was really feeling kind of sick the entire time. And today, or over the past days, these were one of the first days where I felt kind of relatively back to normal. I wasn't hit by symptoms such as fever or so, but just like with a cold-like symptoms. Especially my nose was so, and still is, very, very stuffed. And I have to take nasal spray nearly each and every single day. And I try to get rid of that because I don't want to get accustomed to that. So right now it's kind of like throughout the day, there are times where I'm just like, can't really breathe normally. And then because of that, because you're not getting enough oxygen, you're just getting tired as well and all that kind of stuff, you know. And that also then was the case for training, and training wasn't really the greatest. Needed to take then a couple of days of a deload like last week. And now ever since the end of last week, I'm back now. And in that regard, today was a fantastic session. Honestly, I am so satisfied. You know that feeling? And it was a lower body day, buddy. You know that feeling when you really can feel that you did something for your body part, especially the legs. And over the entire day, it's not completely shattered, but at the same time, you can feel like, oh, right, they are tired. They are disrupted. They are a little bit wobbly. I freaking love that feeling. Yeah. It's such a good sensation. And it was a very, very... I felt like it was a very good session. And what I did also differently here today is that I've tried doing the RDLs/SLDLs in a Smith machine. It was the first time ever that I did something like this. The rationale behind it was, okay, it's the first now lower body day where I'm now pulling from the floor. Let's not overdo it. Let's try this because I know that I still can disrupt my muscle tissue quite significantly. So let's give it a try. And it felt actually very, very, very good and productive, to be honest. Well, what about you? Have you tried this? Have you... what's your take on kind of RDLs, SLDLs in a Smith machine?
I've tried them, but I've never programmed them. Yeah. Like I've gone in there and I've been like, how is this? And I've been like, it doesn't feel that great. But I haven't tried it on the current Smith machine that we have, which I said in a previous episode is way better than the ones I've had access to at the gym. So maybe it would feel better in this one. The only downside is this one that I've got at the moment is one of those Smith machines that bottom out. Like I can squat in it, but I wouldn't be able to, I'd have to stand on a platform to be able to do a hip hinge on it. And I'm just not sure how that would go. Is yours a straight up and down one as well, or is it angled at all?
So we have two, right, at the gym, where it's kind of an angled one and a straight one. And I did it this time on the straight one. The weird thing is, though, because you have to kind of, what I've realized is you really need to push yourself into the barbell whenever you unrack it. So when you're then pushing your hips back, that you're at the lowest point in the proper position, you know? And that was a little bit feeling weird to do it that way. The good thing is, as I've talked about in the past, that for me personally, pulling SLDLs right from the floor, there's kind of like the last couple of centimeters. I would say, like, if I had to throw a number out, it's like the last 3 to 5 centimeters is where a lower back rounding occurs to me. And I can't really avoid it. That's unfortunate, but it's just reality. And this is also where other people are having the same issues, where I'm then saying like, okay, then either elevate the barbell just that slightly so that you are always in that strong position, or do something like paused RDLs. Basically kind of nearly the same thing then. And the good thing is with that Smith machine, you said it yourself, it goes that far down that it kind of acts like a platform for me. Right where that point would be, where a slight, it's not a significant lower back rounding. Depending on the camera position, you wouldn't really assume that a lower back rounding is occurring, but I know that it is, you know?
You feel it.
Yeah. And right at that position, it's actually then hitting the ground. And that's actually very convenient because I don't have to set up plates and all that kind of stuff. So it also there serves kind of that purpose as well.
I may try it again I'm going to try and see if I can set it up in this Smith. And I don't know if you probably haven't had access to a belt squat before, actually.
No,
but I've seen people doing it in a belt squat, and I can see the appeal to that. Obviously, it's like, what would be actually the difference between doing it in a Smith machine to a belt squat? I'm actually not sure, because ultimately it's just a weight in your hand that's heavy. But then it's like, well, what's the difference between that and a barbell and a dumbbell? Well, the dumbbells actually, because they're different, because you can orientate those differently, because it's not a straight bar in your hands. I guess the difference with the Smith is, one, the friction element maybe on the machine, but it also locks you into a pattern versus a barbell, which is free. So it's enough variation there. But I don't know what the variation would be from like using a belt squat to using a Smith machine, apart from that friction element. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of.
One thing that I'm going to try is, I don't know if you guys have, Yorkies doesn't have like that deadlift machine, which can also be used for those Bulgarian split squats. What I was wondering, because that is something that you can also do on machine-assisted pull-ups, because most machine-assisted pull-up machines, they have a very, very bad attachment for grips. You either need to go very wide, but you hit the high end of the range of motion very quickly and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to go hammer grip or so, then you can't really do that appropriately as well. What it is that you can do, if you really want to be a little bit more creative, is actually put a barbell over then the handles, and then you can actually vary your grip width a little bit more so. Right. And then you could also then use some D handles there as well. Yeah. And I was thinking, using the same thing or the same principles, just the other way around on something like maybe the machine, deadlift machine, where then get a barbell over there, hook it underneath it, and then go up and down and see how the movement pattern is, because you said it yourself, the movement pattern is kind of locked in place and predefined. And that is something that maybe that deadlift machine has a little bit more of a natural movement pattern curve. So I will definitely also give it a try there to just see what is feeling more natural.
I guess you could use that same principle for the what's it called, the belt squat, where you could put D handles over a straight bar, or over, if you have one of those attachments available in the gym, and then that gives you more of a dumbbell setup if you put D handles on it, because then your wrist can kind of move where's most comfortable. So that could be, if that could work, because often at least with my belt squat, I imagine it will be limited by range of motion, because you're adding the D handles, which limits like the stretch at the bottom, and then it'll just probably not work. I've also considered doing it on like, I think stability would be an issue for doing it on like cables. If you had a good cable setup and doing like a kind of hip hinge using that, I imagine loading and also like stability, because it will just like pull you like off, like, if you know what I mean, like it's trying to do a belt squat off like the bottom cable without holding on to something for like stability can really upset kind of how you do that. But yeah, I mean, something I've been thinking about my hip hinges recently is I know, and the audience may know this, I know you know this about me, Pascal, is like I often struggle with the technique on it and keep revisiting it. And what I've realized is I can have good technique for like a straight leg deadlift, so bend like in the knee isn't that much, but as soon as I start loading it and I approach failure, I end up seeing a bit more knee bend, and my hips may drop. It's tiny, like it's not a lot. A lot of people look at it and they'll be like, that looks great. And I don't know whether like I'm destined to not ever be able to do the straight leg deadlift like properly, more straight legged, or I should go back again, recycle, and really not progress on it until like I'm able to add load and add reps without seeing that kind of, I guess, tiny little breakdown. Because I was just like, I was doing them again and I was filming it and I was like, man, my straight leg deadlifts, when I try and do it, they just don't look like some other people where you see them and they just move backwards and nothing else happens, and they just move down and their knees barely bend that much. I'm like, whenever I load up and I go heavy and I go closer to failure, I end up, I guess, form breaks down and it turns into a slight RDL or closer to an RDL. I'm like, am I kind of picking at small things, or should I actually revisit that again?
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
No, I can definitely see that and relate to that myself as well. I think that a person that comes to mind is Charlie. He has a beautiful SLDL, and whenever he's doing it, it just looks flawless to me. And also just everything seems to be in place. It's like a figure that has been built that is then having an automated sequence, and it just like repeats it and repeats it and repeats. Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's the same thing, though within the more so the lower back rounding, and also a little bit of a knee bend as well. Whenever I'm going slightly too heavy, that this becomes then the limiting factor. And I think it's probably then also there, once again, falling back to the question of like, okay, what's more important? Is it kind of load progression, or is it kind of proper form? When is it then acceptable? And I think that this is one of the biggest questions that many of the athletes that I'm working with have as well. Like, when is it appropriate to go up to the next territory of load and maybe then have a slight deviation of what optimal form and technique is, and what is an acceptable range? And I think that many people, while yes, I do like the promotion of good technique, I think this can also go way too far. I think it doesn't really help you if you're always striving for perfect technique. I think you must challenge yourself, and it's also acceptable to then have a deviation of what perfect then means. And that's why I don't think it's good to think of it as perfect technique. I think it's more like a scale or a range again of like, hey, as long as I can say that I am still doing productive work for that muscle group, it's all right if there is a slight deviation. And the same goes for when it comes to, for example, pulling movements or lat pull downs in particularly, because people have asked me like, okay, what's acceptable there? And where is kind of the failure point? And I always like to say, hey, you will notice when you are, when you're kind of cheating. You're using more momentum, you're cutting range of motion, so you're not really going all the way to the chest. And if it's just like by a couple of centimeters, it's probably still all right. However, if you then realize that you can't really pull it halfway through the range of motion unless you're using more momentum, this is probably then not productive anymore. And I think that this probably then also applies to something like RDLs or so. And why many people in other camps, and it's not the right term, other camps would imply that I see us in a specific camp or so, or a belief system. It's more like if we were to just categorize it, then there are people who are making tremendous progress where you would then sometimes say like, yeah, but look at their technique. It's not great, right? But yet they are making progress. They are building some muscle mass. Could it maybe be better? Maybe, but they are still always getting into those new territories, which is crucial and mandatory for then the body to make some new adjustments. If you're always doing what it is that you can do, you're probably seeing results, but they decline over time because you're not setting any kind of new stress.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Kind of thinking about technique and good form as like a range where there's like, it can be better and slightly worse within that range, but so long as you're in that range, it's good productive training where it's safe, the target muscles being hit, and maybe having a bit less momentum might be even better, or having a bit more range of motion might be better, but you're still in good technique. And when you start falling out of that, you'll probably feel it. Like, it's like me with I'm trying to do this straight leg deadlift / it's looking a bit like an RDL. I know my knees aren't tracking forward. I know my hips aren't falling dramatically. I know I'm keeping the tension on the hamstrings and the glutes, and I'm not using my lower back or anything. And I'm not like swinging things around or dropping it. I'm controlling it. It's in that good range. It just maybe isn't like all the way to like, if I kept chasing perfect, I might be working with the same weight for like a year and I might never ever progress it. Yeah. Whereas if I work within this range, at least the hamstrings, the glutes, they're getting good work. And if I auto regulate it, I include some more like leg curls and stuff. I get more hamstring isolation. I'm kind of making up for, okay, maybe it was a bit more glute dominant here, but now I'm making up this volume elsewhere. It kind of works itself out within the program. I guess it's like trying to seek for like a perfect meal. And it's like, well, within the day, if that meal might not be perfect by any means, but the rest of the day, if it's all within a good range, like it's ticking the boxes of what we need, it's going to lead to results. If you keep kind of worrying about, is this the perfect post-workout meal? If it isn't perfect, but it's good, like, and the rest of the day is good, you're good to go. If you keep focusing on this one thing and you never progress things or focus on the bigger picture, you hold yourself back there. So yeah, I think, and you can definitely feel it with back movements. That's one of the ones, it's like pressing, you bring it down, like as far as you can go comfortably, you push it all the way up. Once you can't push it up, you know, you've kind of, that's as far as you're going to go. Whereas pulling, like there is that slight momentum and things like this that come into it. But I think it is one of those things, at least this is where I describe it to clients, is you can feel it when no longer the back is doing the majority of the work, other muscle groups are. So, and it's just something you learn over time to be able to feel and identify. But if you're like, oh no, I can't ever perfectly bring it here, touch my chest and pause for a second, it's like, you might be leaving quite a bit of like good reps in the tank there.
No, absolutely, 100%. I fully agree with everything that you said there, and we can even further elaborate on this. And that is, first and foremost, I think you have to actually get, of course, to those territories in order to see the progression. And secondarily, how are you getting better in general in life? You find something that you can't do at the moment and you try on a repetitive basis to actually do it. It's kind of like a level in a video game. And like those typical, let's say Mario, right? Where it was very much a level. And once that's cleared, you can go to the next level. And the first time that you're doing this, probably you had no idea what to expect, what challenges lie ahead of you and all that kind of stuff. And at some point, once you have done that often enough, it's easy and you're going to the next level. And the same applies there as well. If then you have a session where you think that, last week was actually a little bit better and oh shit, I was actually on the eccentric, not as low as I was previous week, it's not a big deal. Because the deviation may just be so ever so slightly that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. However, if you make out of that 1% like a 20% thing, which in reality it isn't, then you will always find yourself revisiting, readjusting the load, because all of a sudden you think like, oh shit, that wasn't perfect, right? When in reality, that perfect is kind of a moving target that should always kind of be in front of you. It's kind of chasing the carrot on the stick. And that carrot is delicious, but you should always or never really reach it. You should really be happy if you don't reach it. You should aim for a reasonable execution of a movement, but if it's just like easy going, it's probably not giving you the results that you would like to.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You mentioned there is challenge. It has to be challenging. If you're so focused on technique and form that now no longer you're actually feeling like the target muscle has been properly challenged, it's not going to be growing because it needs a stress to be able to then induce adaptations to get past that stressor. Like you said, like you attempt like doing the level and every time you get a bit further, but you keep failing maybe. And then like eventually you've challenged yourself so much, you now can execute that whole thing. But if you keep going to the point where it's like, oh, that got a bit tough, that didn't look perfect, and you stop, it's like you didn't actually get into that zone of challenge.
Yeah.
You're never going to you have to kind of get uncomfortable.
That's why I know that people are always, they always want to be part of a community. That's why communities, especially online, are so powerful and often also so vocal. Because when someone is really identifying with a certain group of people, they do everything they possibly can to then protect that. It's just like normal human psychology from like ages ago as well, right? We want to belong. We want to be part of something bigger maybe sometimes. But that's why, and I know that this wasn't the intent of some like Jared, Mike, and Charlie, but that's why I'm not the biggest fan of how people sometimes interpret full team of ROM. Of course, I'm not speaking then for the guys, but I would very much assume that they are on board with what I'm saying here. It's never meant to be a dogmatic statement of like, when you're not doing full ROM, you are an idiot. You're not you're not getting the most out of your training, and I don't know, you will suffer, you will get injured, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that this was ever the intention. However, as always, as with every community and every message, there will be people kind of going on board and taking it to extreme approaches and be like, hey, shit, yeah, no, everyone who's not doing full range of motion is a freaking idiot, and I will call them out for it, like tagging here the other guys. Take a look at that fucking idiot cutting like two centimeters on the bench press. What a fucking douche he is, right? And that's the extreme that some people are then taking it with. And I'm not okay with that, because it's totally all right if someone is then having a proper workout there and maybe he's cutting a little bit of range of motion, and maybe it could be better if we think about it, just based on the scientific literature that we are aware of at the moment. However, often the proof is in the pudding, and those guys are still bigger than the ones who are just like pointing fingers at the people who aren't doing full range of motion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think it's like, because I definitely can see how people would perceive the message that they put out there as like a camp and black and white, and like you can't be part of it if you're not team full ROM or anything. And people then will take that to the extreme where there's some evidence showing that maybe even partial like lengthened positions are going to be possibly even superior for hypertrophy. It's like, oh, you guys are idiots, team full ROM, like we should be doing partial lengthened position or something. And obviously there's not enough evidence to substantiate that claim anyway, but it's not like that's their belief system is full ROM or nothing either. There's definitely nuance to that, and if they knew the guys, they would understand that. But like I think you could compare it to, like, I don't know, if you prefer Coke, like Team Coke versus Team Pepsi. It's not like everyone in Team Pepsi's like, oh, you Coke idiots, you can't possibly believe that Team like Coke is better. It's like, it's just a funny kind of thing to be part of. And yeah, you see some truth in it. You prefer the Coke or the Pepsi, and you think full ROM in most cases makes the most sense. But it's not like do or die, black and white, kind of no middle ground. But unfortunately, people do treat it like that, and then people get interpreted for treating it like that. And yeah, it's like we always say, and you say very well, like you don't really want to be part of anything like as a team, really. Like even like I would say I'd like to be part of the team evidence-based crew, but that's even got bad because or people are interpreting evidence-based as something that it's not. And I think some people would say they're evidence-based, but they're not. And then other people would think someone else isn't evidence-based, but they are. They just rely on like a wider range of like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. This is why you don't even want to be part of a team, because you're like, well, people assume that then you think a certain way, and it's not true. Like team open-minded.
And the thing is, it's always that thing that you can bring up. What is the most important thing? It's probably just going in there and training hard enough.
Team bodybuilding.
And what this then looks like, we can really debate about this, right? But if that box isn't ticked, everything else doesn't really matter. It doesn't, you know? And that's why it's also kind of irrelevant to debate about stuff like this, because there will always be people not training hard enough, and then it doesn't really fucking matter whether you are training with full range of motion, whether you are using certain, I don't know, exercises, certain methodologies, whether you are using ARIA when you're not really using ARIA, and all that kind of stuff, right? These discussions become irrelevant. And as long as you're ticking off that box, hey, then you can really figure out what really works for you, right? But then there's so many other things work in general, and we just know this.
Yeah, this is why, like, I don't know, I always like to just boil it down to the principles. Like, you can look at a program, if it meets the scientific principles, which are, like, it's the same with nutrition. You could look at lots of different diets. It could be a keto diet, But if it meets the kind of principles for fat loss in terms of calorie deficits, providing sufficient protein, could this be a good fat loss diet? It very well could be for a certain individual. Just like a lot of programs, sure, there might be one that relies on lower volumes and higher intensities, but if it meets the thresholds for growth, it's still going to grow you. Could you argue about the nuances of, is keto going to be optimal? Yes, you could argue like carbs are going to provide better performance, blah, blah, blah. Same with like higher intensities, lower volumes. Yes. Maybe you could argue, if you decrease the intensity a little bit, had a bit more volume, maybe it'll be better. But it's still like you have to think about the principles. And I think a lot of people forget that and they just think, camp 3DMJ, camp RP, camp Revive Stronger, camp Jordan Peters or whatever, like where they want to go. It's unfortunate, but it's I guess you've said this before, it's just part of like how humans work. They always like to be part of a team and a camp. And I know I even like having like it's seeing we're part of the Facebook group for Team Full ROM, and it's cool to have that community there, but it's a shame almost that it has to be like this way where there are like people that like you can't be friends and disagree on like science or something. And then they do, like people like Helms, Israel, Menno, they all slightly program differently, but they meet the fundamental principles and they can agree upon those. It's not like they disagree on those, it's just how they set everything else up. Just like we might have slight differences in how we program training or nutrition, but fundamentally we're both ticking the box of that needs to be done, otherwise like something's really off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thought that I had was, because whenever I take a look at my videos that I'm recording, I always think like, man, you're still moving so fast on the last reps. Are you really getting to that failure point? And whenever I come to the last week, I'm always reminded that, yes, I am. At the same time, though, whenever I go through those weeks, I take a look at the videos and I'm just like, man, you're not training hard enough. And I can't help it, I can't help it because the data and going through a mesocycle is automatically confirming that I am. But then taking a look at the videos sometimes, I'm just like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you said it really well, is because that's the thing I was going to bring up is like, if you are training hard enough, because you wouldn't be improving if you're not. And if you're improving meso to meso, you're meeting what you need to for growth. But it's very easy, especially as you get like more advanced, to question whether or not you're training hard enough. And just as just bodybuilders in general, I find like it's like that reel you did, more is better. It's like harder is better. Like that is kind of set in stone for us. And it's so easy I say easy. Obviously it's hard to train to failure. It's hard to train to naught reps in reserve, especially on some like leg movements. But it's an easy like black and white. I know I tick the box of hard enough. So that's where it can be a good bit uncomfortable when you get into these kind of positions where you're leaving some reps there. But I just always think if it felt challenging in the set and it slowed down, and then you remind yourself every mesocycle when you get into that final week, you're like, oh shit, actually I was, because I haven't added 5 reps here. I've added 1 rep on last week and there's just no fucking way I could have got another rep. And it's a nice reminder when you get that. It confirms things nicely. Yeah.
And what I've realized as well is on machines, I have the feeling that it always looks further away from failure than it really is. And it always looks easier, but you're then hitting a decline in also acceleration of then the load or the movement of the load way quicker as well, rather than a heavier compound lift. Do you agree with that?
Especially pulling movements, especially.
Yeah.
Actually, pulling, I will say this, but pulling movements like a barbell bent over row or a dumbbell bent over row, you could look at that and be like, oh no, you've got more in you. But like, there's no chance without tons of momentum coming in, pulling movements in general. But yeah, pressing, machines, I don't know if I see that I think I see it more differentiated versus like free weights and machines, more differentiated between muscle groups. Like pulling movements always looks like there's more there, but internally there isn't. Whereas pressing movements, they can grind generally quite a bit depending on what it is. Like chest pressing for me, especially in like the moderate rep range, like I can end up grinding really slow reps out there on like a machine, particularly on a machine, because I'm like so stable. Whereas dumbbells, it might be a harder to hit those grindy repetitions. You're like, it's just not worth it because I might just lose a bit of stability and drop.
Yeah, I was just doing seated leg curls today, and I was recording myself, and yeah, there was a little bit of a deceleration towards the last rep, but it never really looked like as if I only have 3 more reps in me. But I know, especially on the seated leg curls, it's a little bit different than on a lying leg curl, that I can't really help using that momentum or so, unless I'm really then taking my glutes off the pad, for example, and really then pull it in, right? And on video, it's just like, all right, he's ending the set now, right? And I can see why people are then hesitant in posting stuff like this online, and why people are always kind of training more so to failure, are accusing people of not training hard enough when they are seeing an aria of 3 on a machine-based movement like this, because from the outside, it very much looks freaking easy, or as if the person is coping out.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.
I think hamstring curls are a great example where it's just you hit a wall quite quickly with hamstring curls, lying and seated, but particularly seated, I find, because like you said, you can't introduce a little bit more, like really a little bit more momentum or a little bit more of another muscle group in those and drive. You can't do it quite the same with the lying, but they are, I don't know if it's something to do with like the hamstrings, one being a pulling movement, I find, or pulling, like the way that they, it's weird to talk about muscles as pulling and pushing because they're all like pulling, right? That's what they all do. Yeah. But thinking about it that way because of that. And then also, I guess, because the hamstrings are a more fast twitch, like predominant muscle group for most people, they just fatigue quicker. So you don't have those, like, there's just not a grindability. Like on a leg extension, there's a little bit more of a grindability on leg extensions.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, leg extensions, sometimes I will see it with clients where they think they're closer to failure than they are, but that's because of like the metabolite accumulation and it hurts so much. Like it can hurt like shit for like 3 reps. Yeah. But it's like, you think you're at failure, but no, you've got 3 more reps. And I'm just like, you have to like jump out of the machine because you're like, fuck, my quads are just like.
I had it today as well.
So individual.
Today I had it as well. And I was at 3 aria on the leg extensions, for example. And I'm first really stopping whenever I know it sounds a little bit more like those chicks who want to get a glute burn and pump, but I'm really first stopping whenever I'm getting close to feeling that sensation of a burn, because then I know, all right, now I'm getting close to where my muscular failure point is.
And it can sound really confusing from the outside in, like, oh my God, like the seated to lying leg curl, like the RAR and how it feels is different, but experience kills all kind of anxieties around this. It helps a ton. But also, I don't know about you, Pascal, but I'm a little less worried about my RAR, and I will push my RAR closer. I'll be closer to failure on isolation lifts just in general. And I'll be less concerned about perfect technique in general on isolation-based movements, because I just think the risk to reward ratio is so much more in favor of just making sure you're working hard enough on those. Yeah. So if like my 100%. Leg extensions are at like 1 or 0 RAR for a few weeks where I didn't intend them to be, I'm like, well, it's not the end of the world.
No, 100%.
Leg press or like a compound lift, like hack squats, I don't want those to be at failure for like, 0 RAR for like 3 weeks. That'd just be fucking suicide for me. Like it just wouldn't work very well.
Yeah. A good, absolutely. I totally agree with you on this one. So a good example that I have is I just did a recording on my machine preacher curls. And we always know that for optimal growth, we want kind of a full extended elbow and then come up again, right? Whenever I look back at the video, I was like, I wasn't really fully extended. But what we are talking about are 1 or 2 centimeters, and that's probably not going to make that much of a difference, whereas I really, really couldn't move the load anymore. So what do you think then for the audience will make more of a difference? Whether you're now completely locking out the elbow and coming up again, right? Or whether you are kind of bringing the biceps to failure, or kind of to more that disruption point where it actually then matters.
Yeah.
And those are the nuances that I meant previously, that this is something that you don't really need to stress about too much, I think. Where it's kind of, when you think that this is the reason why you should drop the load again in order to have that absolutely perfect and flawless technique, then you are cutting yourself short. And this is what I was referring to. I think that these are the nuances that many people overthink, and where stressing about technique is going too far, where in reality, it's acceptable. And also it's an acceptable range. And you know that the bicep was then the limiting factor. And I don't really think that it then makes that much of a difference whether you've moved like those 1 or 2 additional centimeters.
Yeah, I like this discussion because I think it's one of those where those who like, I don't know, OCD type of people, where they like black and white and like very obvious things, they might not like it, but it's where I try and get my clients to is understanding where they are. And something I used to do, and I don't know if you still do it, Pascal, but I used to like have graphs and track my clients like weekly training volume and like look at it every week and be like, oh, are we in the zone of 10 to 20 and blah, blah, blah. Whereas now I'm just like, I much prefer someone to understand the feedback their body is giving them and then auto-regulate their training volume. So much so that for me, I don't know where my set volume is right now. I couldn't tell you. It's in my spreadsheet. I'm auto-regulating my sets. I know some muscle groups are higher than others, but I couldn't tell you, and I couldn't tell you where it is compared to last meso. I just know it's providing me what I need within the sessions because of the feedback that I'm getting. So I think if you're in that zone of training hard enough, you're getting the right feedback, like those are the two things that are actually providing results moving forward. You don't need to know like, and I get people asking like, how do I differentiate like counting sets for my reps versus this versus this versus this? I'm just like, find a way. But ultimately, you want to get to a point where you don't have to worry so much about counting the set numbers, because it doesn't matter what the set numbers are. It's you getting the stimulus you need to promote growth. That's kind of where I get to. I don't know if you agree with that, if you know what your sets are.
I have that still in the spreadsheets that I'm handing out. Kind of, it's hidden there, you know, that it calculates stuff. But honestly, I'm never using it anymore because I want to see that the load and the reps go up over time. That's in it for itself the only thing that really matters. Everything from there, it's kind of like a tree, right? As long as we are then making progress, then it kind of spreads out into smaller kind of tranches. And one of them is maybe then, okay, are we working in a set range of like the general recommendation? And often it then leads back to kind of the progress overall. So if we are working in a general recommendation range of sets of between 8 to 20 or so, or 10 to 20, which most people use, then it probably is sufficient enough to then see the progress going up, you know? And that same principle applies then to other things. However, I also do believe that with a much, much lower or even higher set number, it could work out. But what it is that you want is really getting that feedback, that biofeedback of disruption. Because in the end, I don't care whether you're doing 5 sets or 50 sets. If on 50 sets, you're still not feeling the bicep, I can promise you this, you're not growing the bicep. If on 5 sets, though, you're feeling the biceps, I can promise you this, your bicep is growing. So
biceps a good example.
Exactly. So in the end, it doesn't... I know it sounds controversial because you can't really have a workout without volume, right? Because you need something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter as long as you can't or can feel the muscle working. And if you then do the work there, right, and get that biofeedback, then you know that you did everything that you possibly can. And then the set number of MRV, MEV doesn't really matter because you can easily then also manipulate that in terms of then the exercise selection. Some things will fuck up your quads from only 4 sets for that entire week. And some things you will probably need like 20. So what is your MRV then for the quads? Is it now 20 or is it now 4? Right? This is such a moving target. And in the end, you just have to figure out over a longer period of time, what is it that you need now and what is it that you respond to now, and make those adjustments based off of that.
Yeah. It's kind of similar, actually. I think we've talked about it before, but there's obviously that kind of more biomechanics trend of kind of more so isolating various portions of the back to the point of which isolating not just the lats, but isolating lower, mid, and upper lats. And it's like, well, if you perform all your movements in that really kind of isolated manner, sure, you probably need, 10 sets in your back workout to have hit everything effectively. But if you're doing it in I would say the way that we tend to promote in terms of just maybe you could call it more holistic, where it's using more muscle groups and you're hitting like the lats as a whole versus maybe trying to isolate as much. Maybe you have a few isolation-based movements in there to kind of finish things off. Maybe you only need like 6 or 5 versus like it just depends how you're executing. It's like, well, it's not that these two individuals are completely different. This person's got a way higher MRV. It's like, it's actually just how their exercise selection is, how they're executing in the gym. But what do they both have in common is the fact that they're getting hopefully progression in like load and repetitions, and they're also getting that feedback that they've trained the back sufficiently well. And that's kind of what we're trying to, like, generally that's what we're talking about. And I think this is why as you get more advanced, you get, and I can say this for my quad training, bring it back to like you saying, like after the quad, like your leg session, I'm finding after I do my quad sessions, I'm like, man, I can literally do like 4 to 6 sets for my quads, and they are completely wrecked by the end of the session. In the past, there's no way that would have been enough volume, but it's because now my focus and quality of my muscle connection and intent and execution is so much better. So now the end result is, okay, I've left the session with the similar maybe pump disruption, what have you, but now I've needed half the number of sets to get it because I'm way more efficient at getting that done. No, totally. And I think that there's a physiological component probably to that as well. And I'm going way outside of my depth right now, or my scope of knowledge, so to speak, because there are probably other people that could probably correct me on this one if I have a wrong assumption or so. But I still am very much under the belief that when it comes to the mind-muscle connection, and I'm also speaking not about the sensation that you're feeling in the gym, but more so just a repetition of skill sets. So when it comes to kind of playing an instrument, it's kind of the mind-muscle connection as well, right? The more often you repeat a certain movement pattern, the more efficient you get at that, and the easier it becomes for you to do that, and the faster you are, right? It's the kind of just take a look at people when they are using kind of the Rubik's Cube, how fast they can do it. It's kind of mind-muscle connection, right? They have a couple of strategies, and it's just a coordination of then the muscles in your fingers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that when you're starting lifting, it's kind of very, very new to you. So some of the neurological pathways first need to build. And then also there's the protective mechanism of then the motor units that doesn't really allow you to fire a lot of motor units at first. So you have to practice in order then to recruit more motor units, by that more muscle fibers. And then with time, you will probably get a better sensation with even less load, or less work load. So the total amount of workload. And because your body has that better mind-muscle connection, it allows you to fire more motor units, and by that, get more out of the work that you're doing. I think this is one where a lot of people experience, I think it's the same for you and me, like back. It just took, like, I focus on technique, first of all, just like moving A to B kind of thing. But now I can do any back movement, and I'm just like, right, I'm connecting there. And it came into our, like reflecting on a post that came in. It was like talking about like lat pull downs and are they upper back or are they lats or what have you. So, well, I know if I want to make it more upper back, I will pull here and use my upper back. If I want to make it more lats, I'll pull more in here and close to my body, and I'll feel it in my lats. Whereas I guess when you're starting, like, you don't even like you're like all over the place. You're like, I don't know what I'm feeling like going on. And you have to focus more on that A to B. But eventually you want to get to the point, just like you're auto-regulating your training, you're kind of auto-regulating your technique. And that's why it might look a little bit different from one person to the next. One person might use a little bit more momentum versus someone else because that's what feels best to them and their structure, because everyone's that little bit unique. So it's definitely interesting. It's just experience over time, just helps with all of this.
100%. And I think that, of course, this all sounds a little bit confusing, and you said it yourself, knowledge and experience comes into play. And this is also then where, of course, you can always reach out to us whenever you need help with that, because it can be daunting. It can be hard to understand. And having someone who has the experience and the knowledge, such as ourselves as coaches, can be super helpful and beneficial to make the sense of the things that you experience and maybe don't experience yet. All right, so never hesitate. Feel free. I will make sure to actually then plug it up here into the screen section as well. So if you need help with that, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, it can be. I always use the analogy, and it just works perfectly here. Like when you're first going through a game, it can be really like daunting and challenging. And if you just try and go at it yourself, you might do all right, but some games are really tough. And for some individuals, you might be better at it and other people worse at it. That's kind of like genetics. So it's like bodybuilding. Like some of us might just get to grips with it much easier. Other of us might struggle more. So you might want to walk through guide and buy one of those, and that gives you like the tips and tricks. It tells you how to get through levels and explains it. That's essentially what we do as coaching. We actually do coach. I think that's something that people are worried about, in that we're not just going to give you a program and say, go at it, here are your macros and adjust them. We're actually going to explain things. We're going to answer questions so you understand what's going on, so you can go away and like Jesus did. He taught, what's the fable? Like teaching a man to fish is better than giving him a fish, type of thing. We're teaching you how to bodybuild versus just like giving you results and then hoping that you stick with us forever and there's secrets involved. There's nothing like that. It's kind of understanding the journey in that sense. Yeah,
absolutely. Then guys, I guess it's time to leave it here. I think on a good and positive note as well. I really do hope that you enjoyed the conversation once again. I had the feeling that over the past episodes that he brought out, the YouTube algorithm wasn't really that kind to us. We got much less views overall. So guys, if you're still here, because I also didn't really see a lot of comments. So if you still are here, please leave a comment in the comment section below and show us the appreciation, because once again, I'm not entirely certain whether something has changed on YouTube's end and whether we need to be, change something about how we do things as well. So that's why please confirm that you guys are still here. And other than that, I wish you a lovely week and back next week. Cheers.
We need you guys. It seems we're also shadow banned on Instagram.
Yeah.
So what's good if that's a real thing? I was like trying to investigate. I was like, man, this is going to take me down a minefield. So guys, we need your support. Thank you very much. And like Pascal said, we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Steve. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries,
our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
the exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy. We're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.